Every presidential election year, the question arises as to whether the Jewish vote may make a difference. Given that Jews make up only about 2% of the U.S. population, one may wonder why this could be an issue. Well, the truth is, presidential candidates always think that it's going to matter and behave as though it does. And so we're going to take a look at how the Jewish vote influences potential election results. One reason why the Jewish vote makes a difference is because of where the Jewish population is concentrated. If we look at the top states where Jews live, the top 10 states account for 244 electoral votes out of the 270 needed to secure the White House. The top 4 states alone account for 127 electoral votes. So the way Jews vote in states like Florida, Illinois, Maryland, and others may make a difference in a close election. You may wonder how influential the Arab vote is. Well, the Arab population is a fraction of the Jewish population in the United States, and Arab Americans are concentrated primarily in just 5 states, where they make up a very small percentage of each of those states' populations. And in fact, in 4 of the 5 states, the Jewish population is a greater percentage of the total state population. So one does not expect the Arab vote to have any impact on any election. A second factor that influences the Jewish vote and its influence is the fact that more Jews turn out to vote than any other constituency. In 2008, for example, 96.2% of Jews voted in the election. This was significantly higher than any other group in that election. And Jews consistently turn out in greater numbers. Another reason Jews make a difference in presidential campaigns and all elections is that they are major contributors of their time, their energy, and their money to campaigns. In almost every presidential campaign and many other senatorial and congressional campaigns, you'll find Jews playing major roles as advisors and fundraisers. If you look at the giving of political action committees over the years, you can see that pro-Israel political action committees give $2 to $3 million a year to candidates. By comparison, the pro-Arab PACs give a tiny fraction of that amount. All contributions, that is, not only PACs but individual contributions, add up to significantly more money. In 2010, for example, nearly $13 million was contributed by pro-Israel individuals and PACs. Jews have a long commitment to the Democratic Party. In fact, they have, it seems, Democratic DNA. Since 1916, the average vote for a Democrat has been 71%. The average vote for a Republican, just 24%. Harding in 1920 was the only Republican to win the Jewish vote, 43% to 38% over Eugene Debs, who was a socialist candidate. Hughes in 1916 had the highest Jewish vote, 45%. The last Republican to get over 30% in an election was George Bush Sr. He received 35% in 1988, but dropped to 11% in 1992. If we look at the history of Jewish votes in presidential elections since 1980, we can see that the highest Jewish vote for a Republican candidate was Ronald Reagan in 1980. He got 39% of the vote. Jimmy Carter, the Democrat, got just 45%. And one of the indications that the Jewish vote matters and that Jews do care about Israel and the policies a president adopts toward Israel is the fact that Carter got 71% when he was elected in '76 and dropped all the way to 45% for his re-election. Bill Clinton got the highest percentage of the Jewish vote in 1992 at 80%. In addition to Jimmy Carter, another example of a president whose policies on Israel clearly cost him Jewish votes was George Bush Sr., who received 35% of the vote in 1988 and then dropped all the way to 11% in 1992, the year that Bill Clinton got 80% of the Jewish vote, the highest in this period. In 2000, George W. Bush received just 19% of the Jewish vote, in part because many Jews feared that his policies would be very similar to those of his father. But when he turned out to be one of the most pro-Israel presidents in history, his percentage of the vote went up to 24%, still considerably lower than his opposition, John Kerry, who received 76%. President Obama, in 2008, received 78% of the Jewish vote. As we approach November, the question for this election, for many people, is whether President Obama has seen the light and changed his policies, or seen the polls and reacted to them. Look at the question of whether he has seen the light. You can see that he recognized in his first 2 years his policy was a failure. There was no breakthrough with the Arabs and Muslims. The settlement freeze that he demanded of the Israelis actually backfired and alienated both Israelis and Arabs. President Abbas went from being obstinate to defiant, and in the end, his main goal of achieving negotiations and peace did not occur. He also recognized after the Arab Spring that the Palestinian issue isn't the only issue after all. Having seen the light, the new Obama in 2011 changed his policy dramatically. He vetoed a UN Security Council resolution on settlements, increased military aid and cooperation to Israel, cut off funds to UNESCO after it had recognized Palestine, threatened to veto the UN recognition of Palestine, stopped calling for a settlement freeze, and began to take a harder line on Iran and a much softer position toward Prime Minister Netanyahu. He also pledged his support to Israel at AIPAC's annual convention.
America's commitment and my commitment to Israel and Israel's security is unshakable.
Was it the light or the polls? Well, if you look at the approval of Obama in the public opinion polls, we see that Jewish opinion declined significantly. In fact, all Americans began to lose faith in Obama, going from 66% in January 2009 to 41% in 2011, September. At the same time, the Jewish support for Obama dropped from 83 to 54%. Another indication that Jews had soured on Obama was when the American Jewish Committee asked if you approve or disapprove of the way President Obama has handled his job as president, and 48% disapproved. And when asked if they approve or disapprove of his handling of U.S. relations with Israel, 53% disapproved. After Obama began to change his policies in 2011, there is an indication that Jews began to return to Obama. The good news is that when asked whether they approve or disapprove of the Obama administration's handling of U.S.-Israel relations, the percentage approving of Obama's handling went from 40% in September of 2011 all the way to 58% in April of 2012. If the presidential election was being held today and the candidates were Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, who would you most likely vote for now after the change in Obama's policy? You can see that his support has gone from 61% in the April American Jewish Committee poll to 68% in Gallup's July 2012 poll, with Romney holding steady around 29%. But are enough Jews returning for Obama to win re-election? The bad news is that the average Jewish vote for a Democrat is 71%. 68% is not only lower than that, but a 10-point decline from his total in 2008. 68% is also one of the lowest percentages for any Democrat since Jimmy Carter. And the last two Democrats to receive less than 70% of the Jewish vote, Dukakis and Mondale, were both defeated. What about Mitt Romney? Mitt Romney has certainly made all of the right statements on Israel from the perspective of the pro-Israel community. The question still is whether enough Jews will be willing to vote for him. There is good news and bad news. Will the Mormon issue affect the Jewish vote? It doesn't appear that it will, but it could. Swing Jews are also moderates. They're hawks on Israel, but more liberal on social policy, and may object to some of the more conservative positions that Romney has taken on social policies. There's also some doubt about where Romney stands, as his policies have shifted from those he had as governor and those he's taken during the campaign. But being a conservative doesn't necessarily mean you will lose the Jewish vote. After all, Ronald Reagan, a conservative, got 39%, in large part because he was running against Jimmy Carter, whose policies were very unpopular with many Jews. And many Jews today see Obama much like they saw Carter. If Obama stays at 68%, Romney could get more than 30% of the vote of Jews. Is that enough to win? It's hard to say. In the end, this election, though, is not going to be about Israel or foreign policy. It's going to be about the economy. So in the end, for Jewish voters, the question really is less about policy and more about faith. Do Jews believe that Obama saw the light or the polls? Do they think that the first 2 years represented the real Obama, or that the last year has been his real policy toward the Middle East? Do you believe that Obama will take care of Iran in a second term, or are you afraid that after re-election Obama will turn on Israel and take more confrontational policies? Those are the decisions and concerns of Jewish voters in 2012. How will Jews ultimately vote in this election? We'll find out on November 6th.